Hey guys, I want to talk to you today about the ABCs of bicycle maintenance. You just have to remember ABCs when you're considering how to maintain your bike for optimal performance as well as safety. So the A refers to air, but I'm going to expand that out a little bit more because we want to think about the entire wheel when we are thinking about that air or the A in the ABCs. So a couple things we want to look at with the whole wheels. One, we do want to make sure that it's that your tires are inflated before every single ride. This isn't like a car tire where we can just blow it up once a month. We want to do it before every single ride because it's very precise. And if your tire pressure is too low, what's going to happen is you're going to get pinch flats, and you're going to flat out on the road, and it's going to be a bummer of a day. So we want to make sure that we have that tire pressure at a good pressure. In general, somewhere in the 100 to 110 range is a good level, but you can be very precise with that. And feel free to reach out to us to help, and we can help you find the perfect tire pressure for you. But we also want to inspect the tires. We want to go around and make sure there's no wears. If you start to have a hole develop in that tire, what's going to happen is the tube is going to push through and you're going to instantly flat. So we want to inspect that before we get out on the road. And we also want to make sure that our skewer is on nice and tight. Now, to be able to do that, we actually want to put the bike down on the ground. We want to put some pressure on the bike so that the wheel pushes firmly into the dropouts, and then tighten down that skewer, and it should be a little bit hard to close it. But we want to make sure those wheels are on there nice and tight, and everything is good. Now, the second one, B for ABCs, is brakes. We want to check those brakes and make sure that they're aligned on the brake pads correctly, that they're working properly. Sometimes you'll find that the cable will become a little bit unseated, and then the brake won't be working properly, or you'll find that you put the wheel on and it was a little bit off angled. And what will happen with that is that your brake will rub on one side. So what you want to do is undo the skewer, line up that wheel again in the dropouts nice and snug, directly in line, and then you'll find that brake probably will line up perfectly fine. If it doesn't, we might need to make some adjustments to the brakes, and you can do that real easily by just making a little adjustment down where the calipers grab onto the brake pads. If you have questions about that, we can certainly go into more detail on what that entails. And then the last component is C, for C is chain. We want to make sure this chain is clean and that it is lubed properly. You could do this about once a week or so, maybe every other week if you're not riding in a lot of harsh conditions. But if you're riding in harsh conditions, you might want to do it before every ride. Now, it's really easy to do this. All you're going to do is take some degreaser. There's lots of good degreasers out there. You're going to spray it on the chain. You're going to run the chain through like a rag and really scrub that chain really well so it's nice and spotless. And once you have it nice and clean, you're gonna take some lube. We really like this Muck Off lube, and you're gonna put lube thickly onto that chain. Now that's not all of it though. Once you get that lube on there, you're gonna work it into all the little nooks and crannies of this chain. We don't want a dripping wet chain. What we want is it in all of those little grooves so that it rolls with the least amount of resistance possible. And so after you work it in, I encourage you to let it sit. Let it sit for at least an hour, let it kind of get absorbed in, and then we're going to take that rag again and we're going to wipe out all of the excess. This is something that people don't usually do. It's really important though, because if you don't do it, what happens is that lube just attracts dirt. It attracts it to the chain. It actually makes you perform less optimal. And so we need to get all that excess off. In addition to the ABCs, the only other thing I'll say is periodically you want to check all your bolts. Make sure you're doing it to the spec. You'll see on most bolt there will be a number that tells you how tight that bolt should be tightened. You're going to need a torque wrench to be able to do that. It's a great investment to have in your toolbox. And so I would inspect those regularly, especially before races. No one wants to get in that race and have that seat drop or some handlebars come loose, but periodically as well. And then I would also check the cleats on the bottom of your shoes. Really important to check and make sure they're not wearing thin, and or the bolt is coming loose. Very, very important that we make sure those are nice and tight. This is the bolts and the cleats are something I do before every single race, just as a little last minute of security to know that, hey, I'm good and ready to go. So remember the ABCs as you're thinking about bicycle maintenance, and keep that bike super well maintained so that it will perform optimally.